Neuroscience can do anything with consciousness it wants. I don't question its brilliance. It just can't get it into matter. It has no idea how it got into matter. And it has all sorts of ideas. I can tell you what the ideas are. They basically have to do with what Stephen Hawking calls a trillion-fold quantum switches in every event. Those trillion-fold quantum switches get pushed through microtubules, not in the cell, but in the, what would you call it, the organelles. These microtubules are part of them. They get pushed up into uncertainty states and jump across the threshold into synapses, which then fire through central nervous organizing elements into a being who can think and think creatively and non-predictably. The non-predictive element is in those trillion-fold quantum switches, and if you ask Stephen Hawking or any of that, or frankly any of those biological reductionists, they'll go the only place they can go, which is to say, well, it's all those quantum events being driven up through this threshold, these microtubules in the cell, that then give rise to synaptic events, which then end up in the central nervous system, which I won't even say desire, because that's anthropomorphic, but in its tendency to monitor itself and make itself more efficient, creates the illusion of a being, namely all of us, that then observes itself and says, you know, what it says. You know. My little précis of that was, that I tried out on a neuroscientist once, is a light goes on, a light goes off, but it wasn't even a light. I mean, that's neuroscience's definition. It isn't a light because what we're all experiencing is a hallucination formed by chemicals and by molecules. Electrochemical effects of molecules are producing a hallucination. None of it is real, quote, real, and none of it means anything. By which I can't help but give the psychic I've been studying with the last 7 years, John Friedlander, has a wonderful little homily that it's just perfect. Science says that the universe is real but meaningless when they have it backwards. The universe is not real, but it's meaningful. To which I thought recently, it's much more real to be meaningful than to be real in this kind of universe. Because to be real is to be a robot. It's to be, or if you read the neuroscience literature, it's to be a zombie. That's where the word zombie first arose. Zombies are the result of these trillion-fold quantum switches being translated through microtubules into consciousness-like events. Obviously, it took a long time to work through this because I wanted to work through it in terms of not only neuroscience, but shamanism and Dzogchen Buddhism, and all the systems which go to the heart of a different kind of consciousness, a consciousness which, to use the Hindu term, is self-authentic, self-arising and self-authenticating. And I still feel, and it's just a gut feeling when I try and work on this myself, that there is a witness to this who is different than the chemical electrical event. And that witness, that consciousness in the universe precedes matter. Not our kind of consciousness, but intelligence. That it is a conscious universe because it was a conscious universe to begin with. When I set out to do the night sky originally, I made a proposal to Sierra Club that I would write about the internal and external night sky, and I would try and handle the night sky cross-culturally and epistemologically. And that was way over my head. I needed to do cranial sacral therapy, Tai Chi, and practice psychic work to even begin to understand what I proposed. So the Sierra Club book was very, very rough and sloppy, and then I redid it somewhat for Tarcher about 7 or 8 years later, in the later 80s. And in redoing it a couple of years ago, up until last summer, I came to the idea that the night sky is simply the boundary. You look up at that amazing thing, that incredibly radiant, luminous backdrop to everything, and you realize that everything that forms will have a shell, an outer boundary. So the many other night skies are the other systems that form with boundaries. Every mythological universe has a creationary beginning and a night sky. If you read the creation myths of any indigenous people or contemporary people, you'll find an egg or something forming that forms an outer boundary. The night sky is also the physical manifestation of internal spaciousness. When in Buddhism, you're asked to project thought forms outward, and this is true in Western psychic work as well, you are projecting a form, a tulpa, that takes on an outer boundary or a symbolic form. And that becomes the night sky. When you dream there's a night sky in your dreams, that's also the outer boundary forming. It could still be anything, and the Big Bang could still be anything. All you have to do is begin reading popularized or even not popularized topological literature, string theory, rainbow universes, amplitohedrons, or hedra, and you begin to see that the most concrete scientists themselves see a multidimensional element in the universe. So when you do psychic practice, at least in the system that I've studied, which combines the old theosophical work of Blavatsky and Ledbetter with the Berkeley Psychic Institute, with some of the Dzogchen Buddhist techniques, and then, most important of all, since John Friedlander was one of the disciples of Jane Roberts when she channeled Seth, the whole Sethian material, which poses a universe in which we're interdependent in a Buddhist sense, but in which each of us is part of a multi-personhood, a being that stretches intergalactically and has elements to it that we are unconscious of, but are supported by. And at the same time, we are unconscious of all the entities throughout this cosmos that we're supporting. This is, again, a nutshell of a Sethian universe, and even the alternative lives which we don't live, but which our lives potentiate, take on existence in this larger universe of multi-personhoods. So my idea is that you can, and it's always my idea, is that you can go way out there with this stuff and also blend it with science. As long as you don't do metaphors, and as long, sorry Fritjof, you don't do that Tao of physics type bullshit. You know, that easy metaphor, this is that, this all stuff. You actually have to do the work, because the universe is that complicated, and we're that complicated. There's no shortcut. And I look at and it is 40 books, and I'm embarrassed that it took that much, and kind of, you know, sort of regret. You say, what regrets do you have as you get older? I regret I didn't do other things with that time. I wish I had practiced more, done more meditation, more Tai Chi, more Xing Yi, more psychic work. But what can I say? That was always a part of, for me, the witnessing. It always kept me honest to the task.